What's going on, guys? Welcome to Rob's house. Today we are working on the Viper, which is behind me. I've already cleared the garage for this. Today we're going to actually be installing a seat lowering kit in the Viper. Now, this is something that's actually kind of bothered me about this car ever since I got it, and I couldn't figure out, like, for a while, honestly, I really didn't enjoy driving it. There was one thing that every time that I drove this car that really bothered me, and it's that I'm tall. I'm actually 6'2", and the problem with this car in particular is that you actually sit kind of high in this car, and the reason that that's like it doesn't look like you sit that high because the car is so low to the ground, but in relation to the dash, you actually sit pretty high. Now, why is that a problem? Well, it's a problem for one of two reasons. If I actually sit upright in my seat, my sight line is basically level, unfortunately, with like the top part of the windshield. So I actually, like, if I position it here, the way that my eyes would sit, I'd sit about here if I was sitting straight up in the seat. So as you can see, like, the middle of my sight line is here. I wouldn't really be able to see that much. So what I would do instead is I'd kind of arch the seat back a little bit more so that I could sit a little bit lower. And the problem with doing that, though, was that, like, because I didn't have my seat slid as far back so that I could angle the seat back a little bit more. If I had the seat slid way back, then I couldn't tilt the seat back enough. And when I would do that so that I could see, my knees were bent too much and they were hitting the dash. So every time I would go to shift and I'd put the clutch in and I'd let out, my left knee would actually bang against the dash. You know, after about 10 minutes of driving the car, it would get pretty old. So I was like, you know what? I gotta do something about this. And I started looking online and I found that IPSCO, the company that made the short throw shifter that we installed on this car, actually makes a 2-inch seat lowering kit for the Viper. Now, we're gonna install one of this today. I actually already have one on the car. So if you notice here, my driver's seat is a little bit lower because I've already installed a driver's side seat lowering kit. So spoiler alert, I already know how to do this mod, so we shouldn't run into any snags today. I know, famous last words, but I've actually done this one before. As you can see on the driver's side, basically if you use, I don't even know what these are called because they're not roll bars, but if you use this like seat back thing as a reference point, you can see on the driver's side, it sits quite a bit lower than the passenger side. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna install the passenger side seat lowering kit. That'll even everything out. Yes, it doesn't actually matter for the passenger. Yes, I could leave it like this, but if you guys have been following the channel for a while, you know that I'm actually pretty meticulous, and it's gonna bother me if my seats are uneven heights, because just looking at it with the top down, you can immediately see that the driver's side seat is lower. Basically, the way that this mod works is it's a customized bottom bracket for your seat that replaces the factory sliders. And it means that your seat bottom is now actually in a fixed position. So you can no longer slide your seat forward or backward at all in the car. You can still use your seat back tilt, you just can't slide the seat forward and backward. I was a little apprehensive about that because I was like, well, that means ideally the seat will be just in the perfectly centered position. Is that gonna be too close? Is that gonna be too far? Normally, like in the Corvette and stuff, I actually like sitting closer to the controls, or at least if I have a telescopic wheel, moving the steering wheel toward me. I don't like to sit super far back and have to extend my arms really far to reach the controls, like the steering wheel and the shifter. Or like your head unit or whatever. I like actually kind of being up on it a little bit. You know, I was kind of worried about it, but honestly, they did a fantastic job with this kit. The driver's seat now is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I've been driving the car for a couple weeks already with the driver's side one. Before I even ordered the passenger side, I was like, let me just do the driver's side first, see if it's any good. You know, if the seating position sucks, I can always revert it. No regrets at all. Love it. Gonna do the passenger side now. We already have the parts in and everything. I'm super happy with it. And in this car, for those of you who are not Viper owners who just kind of tune into the channel either for Corvette content or whatever, and you're just not as familiar with the Viper platform. In this car, the steering wheel is telescopic, as you would have in any other car, so you can move the steering wheel in and out or up and down, and you can adjust the pedals. This is a cool feature of Vipers in particular. You don't get this in a Corvette. In a Viper, you have electronically adjusted pedal position. So you can actually move all three of your pedals closer or farther away from you. Now, I'm very tall, so with the 2-inch seat lowering kit, I actually have my pedals all the way back. But like I said, I'm 6'2", so if you're, you might not even need this mod if you're a Viper owner and you're just like not as tall as me, it might be fine. But if you just like have long legs or something, like you might not be as tall as me, but maybe you just have long legs. If you notice that your legs are hitting the dash, this will absolutely fix the problem. And honestly, it makes the car feel way more race car. I can't describe it, just something about sitting way lower, like you have to like climb out of this thing now to get over the side sill. It's actually difficult. So, but I like it, you know, it's full race car, it's awesome. Anyway, you won't have any problems adjusting everything to your liking if you do this kit, because like I said, the wheel adjusts, but so does so do the pedals. So you won't have any problems there. For the passenger, like I said, it's completely cosmetic. It doesn't actually matter. I've never actually had a passenger in this car who had any legroom issues. They'll have a little more legroom now just because they'll be sitting lower, so the dash won't be quite as close. But like I said, I just want to kind of, you know, even it out, make it look all uniform, you know. So we're gonna get started, and the thing that we're gonna get started with, first we have to remove the seat. Seat removal is very easy. It's the same as you would find in any car. You have 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't really see them right now, but they're back there on the sliders. Just unbolt them, pull the seat right out. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put the helmet cam on. We'll get started. Just a disclaimer, with the IPSCO seat lowering kit, they have a disclaimer if you have a Gen 4 vehicle. Now this doesn't apply to me because I have a Gen 3 vehicle. In a Gen 3 vehicle, the way you disable your passenger airbag, it's actually in your center console and you use your key. It's a manual disable. Gen 4 vehicles have the more modern system where they actually have a bladder that's underneath the passenger seat. So they have a disclaimer saying that I think it's something to the effect of it changes the weight ranges. I don't think it doesn't work anymore, but I think it works differently than it would stock. So there is a safety warning. If you have a Gen 4 vehicle, just make sure that when, you know, before you order the kit, that you read their safety disclaimer, because safety is super important, obviously. We don't want to be doing anything to our cars that would make them unsafe. But like I said, in my case, I have a Gen 3 vehicle. There is no bladder underneath the passenger seat. Not a big deal. I'm gonna remove the seat. I'm gonna vacuum everything under there and whatever before I come back, just because I'm sure the seat hasn't been pulled in a long time, if ever, honestly. So I'm just gonna pull it out, do some kind of carpet cleaning and stuff, and then I'll get back with you guys in a minute. All right, guys, we're back. I hope I've angled this camera correctly. As you can see here, I removed the seat, so kind of vacuumed it up a little bit, clean everything up in there. We have our seat out. We're gonna begin the install now. Only thing you gotta do when you remove the seat is disconnect this guy. This is your seatbelt sensor, which basically, that's the thing that triggers the light if your seatbelt isn't on to make the car beep at you and yell at you. All right, so we're gonna get started on this install. Now, like I said, I did this on the driver's side, so this is gonna be a reverse. It was a couple weeks ago, so bear with me. I might need to have my directions here that they give us. Disconnect the electrical connector. I did that, remove the seat. Now we're gonna take off the recliner handle, which is your, I'm gonna flip the seat over here carefully. This guy, I'm gonna take this off by removing this one screw. Should come right off. Okay, I'm gonna set that aside. To expose the screws in here, this is just actually Velcro. So you can just peel this back. Same on both sides. We are going to we're gonna actually disconnect the seat back to perform the install. But before we do that, we actually have to pull out this, this cable. So the first thing we're gonna do is release our cable guide here. Okay, so we can pull this guy out. And if we align this right, yeah, there we go, get the cable out. We gotta do that on both sides first. So we gotta, well, we don't have to entirely remove the cable, but we just have to get it out of the hole on each side so that we can actually disconnect the recliner assembly and separate the seat back. And that's important because the bracket that the recliner assembly actually mounts to is going to change because we're removing these sliders. This whole slider assembly is going bye-bye. Now, note, same idea here. It's just, they tell you to make note of the orientation because when you reinstall it, it only fits in one way, but you really can't screw it up because you know that the threaded side has to go in this way because that's the only way that you'll be able to actually get that screw back in. It's not really that complicated, but anyway, with that off, seatbelt and buckle from the seat frame. Okay, so we need this T50 Torx because we are going to pull this guy off. Big, intimidating looking guy, but it's actually comes off pretty easily. That gives us our seatbelt receiver. No, we just needed that. We just needed that screw up. That probably didn't have to be done in that order. All right, the recliner assembly now can come off. I had a feeling I didn't remember what size these guys were. Are they 13s? Are they 12s? Or are they 13s? They're 13s. Just gonna flip the seat on over here. I'm trying to do this delicately and not mangle up my leather. I know I could probably put a rug down or something, but it's okay. This the concrete in my garage actually is a pretty smooth finish, so I don't think it's actually, it's not rough. I don't know if that comes across in the video, but it's very smooth. It's not gonna scratch up the leather and stuff. So before anyone cringes, it's all right. I did it on the driver's seat. The driver's seat looks fine, so. Okay, now, with those 4 bolts off, we can separate the seat now. All right, so we have our seat back here. We'll put that aside. Now, basically the entire install is really on the seat bottom. There's not really anything else to do here aside from set the seat back aside and just reattach it when we have all the brackets connected. So pretty simple. All right, now we actually have to, we remove the adjuster bolts now to get the slider off. So I gotta just turn this over. All right, so the way this works, is we have bolt, right? We got a bolt over here. And to make it easier to get to, and I mean, you're gonna have to do this anyway because you're gonna pull it off. These are just like hooks. If you ever worked with upholstery before, same thing. And then there's, okay, so make sure you slide the seat sliders all the way forward. So as if the seat was basically in its rearmost position on the car, because you'll need that to get to the bolts in the rear. So the way that we get this off, like I said, we got 2 bolts on the sides here. I think these are 12s also, or 13s, yeah. So these are also 13s, and there's a cutout in the foam so that you can access them. That's one. I think we reuse these too. I forget, but anyway, I'm gonna save them. Save everything till the end. I'm gonna determine what we need and what we don't need. I might have to reuse some stuff. Anyway. All right. Okay, so one small difference between the driver's side and passenger side is that there's this extra piece. I'm not sure what this is exactly, but this like bar kind of in the front of the seat, and that's actually in the way of the rear bolts. So you just undo those bolts so that you can kind of move it out of the way and get at the bolts you need to get at. One. In theory, this should just come off, and it does. All right, cool. Now, as you can see, I was using my driver's side as a reference point here. They look more or less the same. Slight difference in this case being whatever this thing happens to be. I wonder if I could get this off and see what this thing actually is. So if I remember correctly, so these screws actually have to come out, and they have a washer and a locking nut on them. This is how you're gonna use these to attach the recliner. So we actually don't need those screws from the recliner because these replace it. I need to figure out which orientation this thing goes on. And rather than watch me struggle, they do have some pictures here. So I will be right back after I study this and remember exactly how this goes on. All right guys, so real quick, I figured out what was looking a little weird to me. So this bar that was in the way that I was a little bit puzzled about before, This is a child harness that cannot be used with the lowering kit. It does not appear. So with that said, I took it out. This was the thing that was in the way that I had to take 2 bolts out of to get to the rear bolts of the actual slider. So anyway, set that aside. And the way that I got that out, it's pretty simple. So this like piece of upholstery, it was really tight because it was around the bar, but basically, if you've ever worked with like upholstery stuff before, it's just like a hook. So I just kind of slid a pry bar in on each side just to kind of break it loose, because it was kind of like, there's some rust here, so it was like kind of stuck on. And then you're able to pry it off with your fingers once you kind of break it loose a little bit. But yeah, anyway, putting it back on, super easy. Just kind of push it back into place. It'll lock. It's got like a, I don't know if you can see it. There's a groove right in here that'll kind of like lock into place, so it won't go anywhere. So I will put that on, and then I'll be right back. Now, in order to install this, so now this is the back. This is the back of the seat, right? So now the way this bracket works is it's gonna sit up like this, up against the back of the seat, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna bolt that on, and on each side. And this hole here is what actually is going to, when we reinstall the seat, so in this particular one, this is where the seatbelt receiver goes. So this will be sitting on this side here in the car. This is what actually slides into place and gets bolted down, okay? So we're just kind of looking at it upside down right now, if you will. But anyway, we're going to take one of our bolts here. So now you gotta kind of like, it's kind of weird to put these on. You gotta kind of hold them straight. All right guys, sorry about that. I was just test fitting in the car. Okay, so I have both brackets attached here, as you can see, by the rear bolts. Looks a little funky, but that's because, I mean, if you look actually in the car, right, the seat, it doesn't sit totally flat, the seat bottom, it angles up. So if you actually look at it, if this was level, right, the seat would angle up slightly. I've test fitted it in the car. It does in fact fit. The rest of the install is pretty easy. So that was really probably like the hardest part, kind of. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna reinstall our seatbelt. So the way that this works is it slides in between here, see that? And we have our locking nut. This receiver is squared off, right? So you gotta just kind of hold that guy in place. We need our T50 Torx bolt here. So you want to make sure that you don't impact that too hard, because you want the seatbelt receiver to move. You see how I am able to move it here, but you don't want it to be super tight and you don't want it to be super loose, right? So, and remember this cable right here, this is your cable that you actually connect for the seatbelt sensor. It's just zip tied into place here. So anyway, that's kind of important. Make sure you don't screw that up. All right guys, sorry about that. I got both brackets on now. I do see why they tell you to install the seatbelt bracket first, and it's because the back of this screw is going to actually butt up against like the seat frame here, which is kind of weird. But anyway, they look a little weird, like they look like almost slightly cockeyed. But I was able to install the seat in the car. I did test fit it just to make sure that it goes into the mounting holes and kind of like aligns properly and whatnot. So now we'll do the fronts, and then we'll do the actual seat back. Right, and this side, if you notice, it has this extra bolt in here, and that's gonna actually be what we use for this. Where's it? This brace, okay? So I'll show you how that works in just 1 second. Let me, I might actually, the battery on my GoPro actually got too hot from, I guess it's kind of hot in my garage and just like leaving it on for so long, so it actually died. So I replaced I put a new battery in just now. Let me button all this up, because it's gonna take me a couple minutes, and I'll just come back and show you exactly how things bolt up. But basically the gist of it is you're gonna mount one of the front guys, they mount on the sides here. So one goes here, one goes there, and then the bar connects the one on this side. So let me just button all that up, and then I'll just come back and show you what that looks like. And then I'll put the seat back on and show you the finished product, we'll put it in the car and we'll be done. All right, guys, so this is the way to do it. You should attach your seatbelt buckle and this, the bar on the opposite side before you attach the rear mounts. And the reason I say that is because in the seatbelt buckle case, this kind of sits up against the frame of the seat. This one, it actually doesn't. You can slide it so that it will clear, but it's just a lot easier to do that when it's not already like bolted down. But anyway, this bar is super important, like I said, to make sure that your recliner works properly. One thing I did figure out from the driver's side is that these front mounts, you can't really see it, but there's a little gap here. They have a hole that it's like a rectangular hole that gives you a little bit of play forward and backward. Personally, on my car, I found that they need to be as far forward as possible in order for me to be able to bolt the seat back in. I really struggled with that with my driver's seat. That's what gave me the most trouble. And when I adjusted them all the way forward, I didn't realize they had adjustments at first. And when I adjusted them all the way forward, all of a sudden I was able to bolt my seat in. So it gave me a huge headache until I figured that out. Now I'm going to reconnect the seat back and then I'll reconvene and kind of show you. It's just like kind of awkward for me to do on camera. You won't really be able to see anything because it'll just be me wrestling with the seat. So let me get it reconnected and then we'll reconnect the cables and then install the seat back into the car. That's pretty much, you know, the vast majority of the install. Anyway, that's pretty much the majority of the install. Once we get the seat back on, we'll reconnect the recliner cable and the lever and then put it back in the car. All right, we're back. Now, I have the seat back installed. You gotta kind of wrestle with it a little bit. It's a little bit difficult to align the seat back bracket here with our new mounting brackets, but I got it. Use the bolts provided, 2 on each side. They go in the exact same spot. They have crush washers so that they lock nice. And now what we have to do, oh, the other thing I didn't mention was make sure when you put this brace on that you keep the recliner cable tucked underneath it. Otherwise, because this will actually sit along the ground of your carpet. You don't want to pinch the cable. So the easiest way to do this is you feed it here into the hole, you know, swing it to the side. Sorry, it's gonna go out too much because of the other side. But anyway, slide your plastic retainer on there, get your screw started and lock her into place. That's it. Now we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Same exact thing on the other side here. We're going to put our cable into place. There we go. Grab our screw here. And we're locked in. We're actually pretty much done. We just got to put the handle back on. Same way that we took it off here. Right on like that. And then we just lock it into place with this screw and we're done. That's it. That's all there is to it. If we pull the seat up and test it, you can see our recliner works. Our rear mounting holes on either side, and we have our front mounts on the front of the seat. Now, the way that goes back in, it's kind of hard, so be patient because it's kind of a weird angle. But the way that I found to do it is get these rears on, get them started, and once they're on those threads and you have the lock washers, these are the lock washers that go on these that actually like lock it into place. Once you have those started, you know, threaded a little bit, then you can go ahead and lock in your fronts. Once you do that, you can torque everything down. So let me just put the seat back in the car and I'll come back and show you guys the finished product. All right, guys, well, I wrapped it all up. As you can see, the seat is installed in the car, sitting at about the same height as the driver's seat now, so it doesn't look super awkward. I guess with the glare there, you can't really see it, but now it doesn't look super awkward from the front of the car. Headrests are basically dead even. Really happy with this kit. I will say, when you're bolting the seat back in, it can be kind of frustrating because it's not like an OEM. You just kind of drop it in and it fits. You got to kind of wiggle it a little bit. The front tabs, one of them lined up okay you can't really see them, but the one that's on the front toward the center of the car, that one lined up fine, but the one here actually kind of didn't So I had to, what I did was I took a punch and, actually I have it right here. So I took this punch and I basically jammed it in where the threads were. And so it was sitting at an angle and kind of just pried it. I put like a socket on the end of this and an extension so I could pry it to bend the tab a little bit to fit the way I needed it to, so that I could actually get the bolt in there without cross-threading anything or destroying anything. As I mentioned, it's a 2-inch lowering kit. You sit a lot lower in the car, which is really cool. So now it's gonna feel super aggressive for the passenger in the car as well. Main things to note, be mindful of the ordering that I told you before. So do your rear brackets, do your rear brackets first. Seatbelt retainer and that bar that connects to one of the front mounting points. Connect those first. Then put your rear mounting plates on, then put your front mounting plates on, and then you can reconnect the seat back, and then cables for the lever back in place. It is worth noting that when you first do that, your cable might not be seated totally perfectly. So you kind of just want to like grab the handle a bunch of times and just pump it a few times until the cable seats in its receiver properly, but then it'll operate as normal. So as I mentioned, you can't slide the seat forward or backward anymore. It's fixed position, but you can arch the seat back. I mean, I just keep them most of the way back anyway, because the Viper actually, even with them back as far as they go, it's still a relatively upright position. You're leaned slightly back, but it's not very severe. So I usually just keep them like that. But anyway, yeah, really happy with how this came out. And like I said, this was more of like a cosmetic mod because I had already done my driver's side, and that's like ultimately the one that actually matters. But you know, now it won't look weird. So that about wraps it up for tonight. As usual, I hope this video is helpful. I hope this video is entertaining, and I'll see you guys next time.
So reach for the stars, 'cause we're aiming high.